Welcome to the T-roh Show. Transmitting truth one week at a time.
Welcome to the 47th broadcast of the T-roh Show. We got this is Keith. We got Tony and Stu.
Good afternoon.
Hello, everyone.
All right, we got some stuff that we want to cover. Basically, on a past T-roh Show, we mentioned that don't worry about the nuclear threat over by Kim and the North Koreans. And I believe I said that it was nothing more than to sell South Korea and everybody else arms in that region. That's all it was for. Well, lo and behold, here we are. And we'll be sharing some screens here. Trump, he's hyping this. Hold on one second. Family. There we go. All right. U.S. clears 1.9 billion sale of K-46A tanker aircraft to Japan. Isn't that amazing?
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing. It was like it's magic. And so they did it on September 21st. And we knew that. I mean, it was very obvious what they were going to do. But how did they set it up? You saw some images before. How did they set all this up from the beginning? Well, this whole deal was set up in the 90s. Believe it or not. And see this guy here? What is this guy messing around with this guy for?
I know Dennis Rodman. He used to be a hoop player.
Yeah. Gee, look at this guy. Okay. This started way beyond that. Now, how did it start? That was the weird part. How did this start in the 90s? How did this guy end up sitting next to the leader of North Korea? Well, we can look around. This lady here, Madonna. So celebrity couples you probably forgot dated in the 90s. Now, why is she so important? This is most people think, oh, Madonna, she's some skank, blah, 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 blah. Well, she is in relationship 10th cousin to Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Beautiful.
Okay.
There's a fun fact.
Uh-huh.
There's two dots you can connect.
Yeah, there's some dots right there. And who is connected to that? Well, Uranium One scandal about Hillary Clinton. Here is why some observers call it bogus. Okay? So how did they set it up? So they pulled him in to finish the deal. Now, keep in mind, there are women Masons and there are men Masons. Okay? He's part of the man side. Okay, and these are the women side Masons. I believe they call them Morning Star. Okay, so all of them are Masons. Every one of them are Masons, and this is why we say the Masons are in the business of selling arms. That's what they do, and that's why we say that all wars involve Masons. So it's very clear what's happening here. So this lady gets a hold of this lady and says, we need you to get a hold of this guy and date him for a while. Let's groom him. Okay. And let's dress him up in a wedding dress. Okay. And mess with his head a little bit, screw around with him, all this kind of stuff. Let's bring him in as a low-level Mason. And let's get him over to Kim, and let's make a Uranium One deal with him. That's how all this is done, guys. All these people are Masons. Guess what? Kim's in on it. Kim is in on this deal here. U.S. clears 1.9 billion sale of K-46A tanker aircraft to Japan. He's in on that deal. And guess what? So is the leader of Japan. He's a Mason. He's screwing over his own people. That's why in the dinner banquet, Trump was praising the hell out of this guy, the leader of Japan, so that he's a go-getter, he's a negotiator, he's this, he's that. When we were playing golf and all this other kind of thing, he was selling their leader. Okay, think about it this way: you go to a banquet dinner, and a so-called president goes over there to sell the leader of Japan to his people. Think about it. Does that make sense? So he's selling him to him. He's a go-getter. He's this. And when I first got into office, they said it wasn't really proper for me to visit with foreign leaders until after the inauguration and all these other things. And he's selling the leader to their people, which means the leader of Japan is in it with all the rest.
Yeah, I haven't Googled it, but what's the guy's name? Anybody know? Is it that guy Abe or something like that?
Yeah, I probably can't pronounce his name, so I didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't want to throw that in there, and I can pronounce Kim, so I was good there. But what we're trying to show you folks is that you're living in a fake world, because a lot of people won't remember any of this. What they rely on is that you don't pay attention. Number one, you're not observant, and you forget. That's what they're relying on. And guess what? It's a good about 90% chance that you're going to forget.
Well, I thought that was interesting that it's in the very title of the article. You know, it said something like couples that you forgot existed or something like that.
Right.
And that was so true. I didn't remember they were together.
Celebrity couples you probably forgot dated in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay. So they gave Rodman his little concubine right here, Carmen Electra. She's just what they want to call Illuminati whore. She's a Mason whore. She's prostitute. That's all she is. She was to give, so he'll be cooperative. So they gave her to him for a while. All right. And everybody remembers when he was under contract with the NBA, everybody hated him. You suck, blah, 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 blah. But how many people came to watch him? People you love to hate. He sold tickets because people like to go and hate Dennis Rodman. So he played it very well. He played you by being useless on the court and playing the contract deal. He played you.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I really do. I remember thinking to myself back in the mid or late 90s, because he's been going over to North Korea regularly for a while. And I always wondered how a basketball star that dresses like a woman on occasion and full of tattoos, etc., how he ended up being close to the North Korean rulership family.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I think that cross-dressing was part of the initiation. So he got initiated, like, most of these rituals that they do in initiations, and that's where he's at.
I would tend to agree with you.
And then they tried to sell Trump as a guy who didn't go through those initiation rules and all this. He wasn't a part of the secret club or wasn't part of the secret society and all that. I beg to differ, man. There's a video right on there. He says he's a Mason. There's only one video on YouTube. Go find it. He does say he's a Mason because he's talking to this other couple, the so-called Christian couple. They're trying to play the Christian card. I call it the Christian card. And they're saying that they've been married for 35 years. And the one man says, well, we were together 33 years under the blood, meaning within the brotherhood. And he goes, and then Trump says, well, I'm a Mason. I should know what that means. It's only one video on all of YouTube that talks about this. And for the life of me, I cannot tell you the name of it, but just put in Trump says Mason and it'll go right to it. Okay. So they're all in this together, folks. So there never was a North Korean nuclear threat. And I'm going to tell you why, because there was a little blip that came out. And I was observing again, just watching, I'm just paying attention. And they said they hacked his missiles. That there was a ship offshore that hacked Kim's missile and then made it twist and turn and everything and blow up. That means this. They're going to, if in fact a nuclear strike ever happened coming from North Korea, it did not come from North Korea. Because if they can hack his missiles, that means that they allowed that missile to go over Japan, getting it ready to set the Japanese people up for an arms deal.
For the close.
You got it. That's what they were doing.
Nothing like a missile exclamation point for the close.
Uh-huh. And it was also to show what those missiles can do. So it was also a missile commercial for the Japanese people in real time. It was an advertisement. It was like watching a McDonald's commercial on television. That's how it's classified. So when the missile went over Japan, the people saw the missile, that they were watching a commercial that scared the crap out of them.
It was live on the set.
Right. So they're putting pressure on the Mason they have in place in Japan to buy weapons from America to protect them from Kim. When he was told by the Masons to shoot off the missile. And he has been told that. And then they started calling him Rocket Man. Now, here's the question. Why use the word Rocket Man? What does Elton John have to do with this? That's one of his songs. I haven't done the research on it. That's a question.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for the shoe to drop. I'm like, oh my God.
So, I mean, seriously, I haven't done the research on it. But why use the word Rocket Man? Unless they're referring to something else.
Well, they do speak in code, so.
Yeah. And he's at the UN calling him Rocket Man. But there was no reaction from the North Korean delegates there. That means the North Korean delegates were listening to him intently, trying to figure out what the next message was. That's all they were doing, because they were writing down what he was saying. They're all talking together.
Well, somehow the Knights Templar are probably involved also, because Elton John is a knight, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So it only takes a little while once we get on the right what do you call it, a path of thinking to figure it out. It's not hard. So it's not that I was a psychic here and I was telling you the truth, the future. I'm just saying that nobody pays attention. If you just pay attention, you can see what's going on. Now there are Dutch Masons. All the monarchs are in Masonic orders. There's so many different of these orders that all work together. It's unbelievable. They're all the same thing, the same family, doing the exact same thing. That connects all the way back. But you won't ever hear anything about, okay, we have the worst courts in the world, right? So what's he doing? He's over there selling arms to Japan. Then he's going to go to China. And they did it really well, because they put all, in order to keep control of this, to make sure nobody gets hurt, and that's what they were doing. They put out a bunch of U.S. military over there, and then China goes to the north part of North Korea, and then they put a big a military presence there. And then they put a big military presence in South Korea. That was to control, to make sure there was enough, it was to make it real to the people. There's a real threat here. Otherwise, why send all these ships? Why do all this stuff? It's got to be a real threat. Those are all commercials on television to get the Japanese people to comply with the arms sales.
This just in, breaking news, Elton John is a Mason.
There you go. So that means he must be the go-between with the King of the Netherlands, because it's a Netherlands company that sells the arms.
So he must be the rep.
Must be. These guys are not into entertainment, folks. What they are, they're into ops. Madonna's special ops. She's not a singer. He's not he's not a basketball player. He's in special ops. He's a lower level go-between. He's a message. He delivers messages. That's it. Back and forth. Okay? So there's no such thing as an entertainer. There's no such thing as a celebrity. That's all BS. They're all in it together. They sell certain things. They sell products. That's what they do. Okay? So you're living in a dream world if you think there's actually an entertainment industry. We'll give you an example. Okay, take a look. Let's go ahead and close that one. Let's go ahead and close this one. Close that one. Okay, right here. This is a tower. This is the One World Trade Center readies for broadcast. Okay, that's a tower right there. No big deal, right? Until you start looking at the Elder Wand, which is the same exact thing, the most powerful wand in the world. Through who? Death and Harry Potter. Dumbledore's wand. It's a replica. Right here. So the whole thing with Harry Potter was nothing more than 8 episodes of giving out communications and notices to how the Masons all communicate with each other. It's just a communications network. Now that's no coincidence. There's the Elder Wand. And they tell you on that last one, he's hyping things. A lot of people don't watch Harry Potter, but here it is. There it is right there. He tells you what's going on. This is how he gets what? He gets memories. He was able to pull memories, and he was able to go into some big bowl of water. You stick your head in the water, and you're able to see the memories. This is how he removed memories from his head. Everybody get it? It's right there in front of you.
Well, you know what's interesting too, Keith, is this is talking about the One World Trade Center, and it says it's getting ready to broadcast. You've shown a sample of that wand, right? It deals with witchcraft or whatever, and
dealing with memories of people. Go ahead.
Dealing with memories of people, right? And if you think about it, another wand used in witchcraft and similar is made out of the holly tree or Hollywood. And if you think about what Hollywood is, it also broadcasts notices and information as such, just the way this One World Trade Center is, proposing to do. And it's all there. You just got to connect all the dots, and then you'll start seeing how these notices are happening, how they communicate with each other, how societies are manipulated through these broadcasts and notices. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah, and look at this right here. What does that look like?
That looks like the
Pine
acorn.
cone.
It
Yeah, the
looks like a
pineal.
pineal gland.
Yeah.
Or a pineal gland. Yep, either one. Mm-hmm.
And for those people who don't know what the pineal gland is, the pineal gland is in the middle of your brain, and it's supposed to be a antenna of sorts from the spirit realm to here. That's the go-between, and it's supposed to go out of your forehead. That's just what they say. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but it is what it is.
Another thing they say, Keith, is they talk about programming. So if they're talking about programming, what is it or who is it that they're programming?
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll stop sharing. Go ahead and show those towers.
Okay, so here's a tower of, let's see, where is that at? Here we go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, here's a tower. You guys may have seen quite a few of these around your neighborhoods or while you're driving around. In some areas, it's been reported that they're also disguised as trees, and they're very obvious that they're fake trees. But once you look and notice, you'll see these antennas underneath that. And it says here, there are handheld directed energy weapons used on targeted individuals. So keep this term in mind because we're going to visit this in a little bit, targeted individuals. It says here, these towers are what whistleblowers say they use on targeted individuals and can be used on groups of people. Even PIs, private investigators, have traced signals back to them. So here's, you want to go a little bit into targeted individuals, Keith?
Yeah, we had a guy come up to us, and folks, this sounded really crazy to us. This back in the day, this was a couple of months ago, and he came in and he says he's a targeted individual. You remember that, Stu?
Yes.
It was on one of the calls, and we're sitting there going, "What the hell is he talking about?" I thought the dude was nuts. He says they placed implants in me, and they did all these things, and
was that the guy with the teeth?
Yeah, there's stalking him and all that kind of thing. Okay, you might want to go to another image there, Tony. But yeah, stay there. So they're sitting there, and he calls, and he's on there, and I don't know, he's acting like he's in an emergency. He goes, and he's from Seattle. So his son was working in Canada, and he's sitting there, and he sounded weird. Where was he from, Tony? You remember?
No, I don't remember.
Yugoslavia or the Ukraine or something. I don't know what he was, but he had a real thick accent, and he's saying he was a targeted individual. And I'm going, what the hell is he talking about? A targeted individual? I don't understand that. And then he starts making all these wild claims. There's people following me. They put implants in my head. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. My son had to escape. My son's in Canada. And this sounds pretty wild to me. So I'm thinking, all right, I don't know who this guy is. One of the main problems we have are agents that come in, right? The very first thing they do is all of a sudden the system's after them. They're in danger. System's after them. Somebody's trying to kill them. They create these wild scenarios, emergencies. We find out later on they're not true. So I thought, okay, we got another whack job here. So I said to him, you're going to have to prove what you're talking about. So lo and behold, a couple of months later, I start, I'm perusing, and I look at this this video, and it's about gang stalking. And it happened to be one of these guys that were hired as a gang stalker, and it's a 15-minute video. So I end up putting it on. I put it on VidTower, okay, VidTower/post. I put it on there, and I said to one of our guys, I said, "Hey man, might want to download this because I have a feeling that this is real, because what this guy is saying, is some of the same things this other guy was saying to us, okay? And neither one of them met each other. So the guard, the guy that was a security guard there, a security officer there, in the gang stalking thing, was saying the same things. And I said, well, wait a minute. Here, this guy comes on the assembly, and he starts saying this stuff. It sounds a little nuts. Then this other guy starts saying the same thing. What's the odds of these guys talking to each other? And the very first thing this guy says is, the security guy says, he says, yeah, they started in Seattle. And he says, you'll notice that when you go downtown, a lot of times you'll have people, everybody's angry. They don't know why. They don't know why they're upset. And so I started thinking about that. And the weird part about it was, why did Alex Jones go to Seattle, Washington? Then go downtown and then start getting attacked by people. But the weird part was, why was he in Seattle, Washington? That's a very weird place to go. And he had some guy come in, and you'll be able to prove this, because there was a guy that said he threw some coffee on him, hot coffee.
That's right. I remember that series of videos. Didn't he say he was there for Family Matter or something?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. It was a very weird thing. Why go to Seattle? It's not really that it's not like Disney World's there. You know what I mean? It's not like a big tourist area. It's just nothing more than cloudy all the time, dark, and that kind of stuff. So why go there? And then why make all these wild videos of him going after and running after people and all this and creating all this drama? But all of a sudden, Alex Jones disappears and goes to Seattle. Weird, right?
Very strange.
Very strange. So I start thinking, wait a minute, there's some targeted individuals. So I look at this targeted individual video. There's not too many of them out there. And it was a documentary about these guys that claim to be targeted individuals. The very first thing they do is tell you, look, you're going to call me crazy. I know what you're going to call me. I know what you're going to do. You're going to call me nuts. Okay? And these are unheard victims lost beneath the lies. This is, we are the tortured ones, put on a list to die. And that's absolutely true. We are rising wounded, begging for your aid, become specks of dust in an evil charade. Please listen. And I started looking more and more into this. Well, lo and behold, one of the targeted individuals said, yeah, the Masons behind it. I said, oh, okay, here we go. Now this starts making sense, right? So he starts showing, he has a friend of his, one of the guys, he has a friend of his that is a dentist, and took an x-ray of his head. And he has an x-ray in the video of his head. He says, here's one implant, here's another implant. He says, now I'm going to show you my neck. And he says, you see that right there? And it's a little rough. And so he goes back with a scalpel and cuts his neck open on his own. Okay, not in the video, but on his own. And he pulls this chip out of his head, or out of his neck. And then he had two in his shoulder blades. And these guys are claiming that they can hear people talking to them. Well, that would make sense.
Right. The guy that did that shooting in was it Annapolis? Not too long ago, perhaps a year ago, perhaps 18 months ago, something like that. He said the same thing, that he was hearing voices for weeks before the event, and it drove him insane.
Right.
I mean, nutty, to the point of erratic, couldn't sleep, so he's not capable of, making proper decisions and all that stuff.
Well, I think this guy was also claiming that he had implants in the filling of his teeth.
That's right. I remember. Yeah, that's right.
He had fillings, and they had implants in them.
Speakers or whatever they were, yeah. So they could listen to everything he was saying. And in the documentary, the guy was saying, yeah, I'm here and going, screw you. You know, I'm being nice about it. It's F you. F this guy. He goes, yeah, they're telling me right now. And he said, they're telling me to F you, F off. The guy's doing the documentary on him. It's called the Targeted Individual Community. And, you know, then you start listening, looking at the comments. And guys, folks, we know how crazy that sounds. Believe me, because we already had them coming up to us like, man, you're freaking nuts, dude. But if it wasn't for this other guy who was on the inside saying certain things that I know are true, it would not have gotten my attention. And he was saying things, he says, we recruit gang stalkers, and most of them are normal people. Some of them are crazy or whatever. And what they do is same scenario to groom you to be a Mason. You're going to get a good, nice car. You're going to get women, all the women you want, you know, supplied by the Madonnas of the world. That's what they're doing. They were supplying them with women. Kim, y'all get it now? What they're doing? They were, you know, they got him going here. You know, he's not a god if he's doing women. So that's a good way to keep him. Because over there in North Korea, just so anybody knows, they restarted the clock for when his father was born. So that they're supposed to be gods. Time controllers, you know, that kind of thing. That's why they do spring forward and fall back. It's a just as a side note, it's a demonstration that they control time. That's all that's about. Time is the essence of a contract. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Anyway, where was I? I went back to. Y'all remember? Sorry, I lost my train of thought when I went on that other side.
We're talking about Madonna supplying all the women. They were,
right. Okay. So a lot of them are going after these. Y'all, most people seem to think that women are innocent in this whole thing, and they're really not. They're the ones supplying the men with the girls. And the reason why that is because girls will feel calm with another woman in the room. So it calms them down. So just to let you know, a lot of the pedophile trafficking is done by women, not men, in this Masonic organization. But let's go back to the targeted individual. Yeah, he was saying F off to him and everything. And he goes, the guy that with a chip in his head, he says, just, you know, screw him. He says, he's just some geek in a control room. That's all he is.
I'd like to throw something in here for credibility purposes for folks that are having their mind blown at this point. Keith, you recall you and I looked into a case where somebody, I believe he was in Texas or something, was jailed. And he was claiming that he had been...
Chips in him. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that, Stu.
Right. And remember, and here's the point that I wanted to bring forward. You remember that we researched that one night, and we came up with the patent technology to show that this stuff actually exists, that it's actually useful. They can send music and voice through these miniature electronics. And, you know, it's real. It's real stuff. We saw the patents.
Right. And anybody can look this up. Look up targeted individual on the internet. You'll see x-rays of these chips actually in people's heads. So there's other stuff on there. And there's a lot of these people, and it's called the targeted individual community. And they said that there are thousands. And they usually pick at people that don't have a lot of family, or very few of the family. What they do is they isolate you, which is a tactic they used to use on us back in 2012, which doesn't work anymore. They would isolate one individual from the rest of them and try to, you know, put out all these false narratives on them and false stories. And then all their friends just start, man, they've gone off the deep end. They're crazy. And then they're left alone. And a lot of them end up homeless. I mean, one of the ones in the community, this woman, I don't know if I've never been through that. So I've been through it to a certain extent, but not to this extent. This woman wears aluminum hats at night, you know, all this kind of stuff to knock out she says, it really helps me sleep. And, you know, there's the scars are there. There's something to this. I don't know exactly the whole thing, but there's something to this. And I don't think that we should dismiss this like we did, you know?
I've got a little bit of very non-scientific, and I definitely don't claim to be a research expert on the subject matter, but I have looked into electromagnetic frequencies, and they can be manipulated, and they can be harmful to the human. And there's a school of thought, and this is what I wanted to bring forward, is that there's a school of thought that's pervasive that says that the antennas, the electrical wires above ground was all done intentionally so that the frequencies are constant around the surface of the earth. And these microwave towers that we got introduced to moments ago, I'm sure we're going to revisit that. I've read that they're along the similar lines, that what they do is they in fact actually do shoot out, you know, electromagnetic frequencies way beyond what's needed for like cell phone and things like that. You know, 5 times, 10 times the signal strength to carry the cell phone, or what you would consider traditional technology. So I think there's smoke here. You know, there's something to this.
Right, and this is what they were saying here. I was just talking about that, and Tony was bringing up. You want to read that, Tony, or want me to?
Go ahead, Keith.
Okay, targeted individuals are human beings that are being used for human experimentation. That's, folks, that's a human rights violation. That's to the nth degree. You can't do that. That's what the Nazis did. No-touch torture, genetic manipulation, covert drugging with LSD, PCP, and other hypnotic drugs, remote neutral monitoring, infection with Morgellons, gang stalking, electrocution, poisoning, harassment, break-ins, thefts. Every one of these people have said the same exact thing, and every one of these people have not talked to each other. They're all saying the same things. This guy in Texas did not talk to the people in Seattle, but he was claiming the same things. Surveillance, taunting. Hold on one second. Back down. I was reading. Okay. Taunting, bullying, sabotaging of relationships, work, home, school, family, etc. Misdiagnosis as mental illness. It's the same scenario. Schizophrenia, paranoia, and other mental illnesses. And every one of these people have said, I wish I had schizophrenia. At least I could freaking take a drug for it.
And, you know, one of the ways that they, you know, the powers that be like to put people away is put them in, give them a psych evaluation, say they're crazy, and put them away.
Right, because there's a law there that says that they're not subject to human rights violations if you've been manipulated or been diagnosed.
Mm-hmm. Easy way to put them away, just by saying that. And these people could actually be hearing voices. They might, it is very possible they might have implants, and they're being misdiagnosed as having a mental illness or schizophrenia, and they could be potentially being put away, drugged up, so they can't talk about what's happening. Something to look into.
Right, and here's the connection. All the doctors, all the psychiatrists, every one of them, guess who they're a part of? They're all Masons. They're all part of the whole deal. So if you have too many coincidences, a lot of times they're not just simply coincidences. Oh, by the way, that they said the Elder One was made out of the Hollywood. Well, that goes all the way back to the crucifixion. They said he was crucified on holly tree wood. So there's the other connection there. Remote mind control, mind reading technology. Now, in the video, the 15-minute video, I'll put the link up there, folks. We'll make sure that everybody sees this video. It does show where there was a video of Bush saying certain things that just did not sound right. I don't even think he knew what he was talking about. There were a lot of things. That was George Bush, the Jr. He was in the middle of a speech and just started saying things that he didn't. I don't even think he realized what he was saying. So, but I also think that that was a demonstration. That was another commercial to sell this deal. You got to understand, there's got to be ways to be able to advertise this, and that's how they do it. These are advertisements. How are they going to advertise? Okay, you can't just go on regular TV and advertise missiles to everybody in Japan, like you're buying a body lotion or some crap. You can't do that. So you have to have live, real-time commercials to sell products. If the products you're selling are, mass destruction, killing, death, maim, and all that, you've got to create a fear scenario. You've got to scare people, and while they're afraid, you got to give them a commercial. Here, we're going to make you feel safe.
And it's usually been a pattern that when this happens, they are usually conducting some quote unquote exercise that's very similar to the live event.
Right. Now, if the American people, did not buy guns as much as they do, I mean, Obama sold more guns, I think, than anybody, any president of the company that they ever had. He was scaring the crap out of people. People were buying more guns. Well, that was the point, folks, to get you to buy guns. They were just trying to. That was a commercial. It's an advertisement. He's one of the best spokesmen that you could ever imagine for the gun companies or for the weapons manufacturers. That's how it works. So like we said, you're living in a dream world, a very, very fake world. And all you have to do in order to not live in that dream world, in that fake world, is just observe, watch, pay attention. Pay attention to what's going on. And when you start seeing certain things here and certain things here, weird things that just start connecting, eventually the whole story will come to light.
Something that's always been mentioned and has helped me be more observant in this way more effectively is you got to watch what they do, not what they say.
Right, because a magician is always a magician, doing magic. It's always about diversion.
Yep.
Diverting your attention somewhere else while something else is going on. And that's why they call themselves magicians. Illusionists, especially the Illuminati does. They're illusionists. These kind of things are always going on. So pay attention. If you pay attention, your world becomes different. And you start to realize there's nothing really to be afraid of. They use fear to blind you and to manipulate you into all kinds of scenarios and things that go on. But whoever knew that Trump was actually just closing the deal that the Clintons put together? They're all working together. And if there's ever what they call a so-called assassination of Trump, don't believe it, man. He's alive. He'll be fine. It's all a show. It's to make you think and believe this, that, and the other thing. And I'll tell you why. The same exact scenario that happened in Vietnam is happening here. I'm going to tell you why. Vietnam, the same people were flooding both the North and the South with weapons, oil, all these other things. Who knew that Rockefeller built an oil rig in North Vietnam during the Vietnam War that was never touched? It's because he was supplying the North Koreans and the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese with weapons and everything else, back and forth, back and forth. Same thing is going to happen in this country if there's ever a civil war. They're going to supply both sides. And that same scenario is happening now. But they think you forget, because a lot of people today, a lot of the Vietnam vets are very old and nobody's going to listen to them because, oh, they're just old people. They don't know what they're doing, blah, 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 blah. Because the younger generation never listens to the older generation in America. So they're getting ready to supply both sides with weapons, food, and guess what? At the end of it, they don't care who wins. The one who wins pays the bill and remains in perpetual debt. So they don't care which side wins. They care at the end of all this said and done, all right, I got a bill here. I supplied you with all this and brought you to victory, which they didn't. They didn't care who won. And now here's my bill. And now you're in perpetual debt forever.
And they justify all those deaths by just calling it collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
They're redefining it.
So this country has never been more divided. That right there, we've heard that statement how many times? It's never been more divided. How do we solve this problem? How do we do this? It's being set up that way, so that you can supply both sides for a civil war. That's all they want. They don't care what happens.
It's a win-win for them.
Masons still remain in power because they become creditors after the war. It's the same people, same scenario, same thing every single time. Nothing ever changes. So guess what? Stop falling for it. And then it doesn't work. I've never heard some more anti-Trump stuff on regular television than I have now. I don't really watch regular television, but when I do, I look at it, it's like, man, I cannot believe how anti they are. Okay, so keep in mind, folks, that's a company. It sells weapons. That's what they do. That's all they do. And the ones that sell the weapons, in order to keep control over them, they keep the people they sell weapons to in perpetual debt. That's how they keep it control of this whole situation. But we need to do something new. We need to change direction. And not the same old thing. These wartime, war, what do they call it? War cycles, peace cycles, and all this other stuff that these guys keep doing over and over and over again. They've got to stop. So we're not promising we're going to stop it, because people just have to decide to stop. And the only way to really stop it is to understand what's going on and not fall for it. Don't be manipulated. Do not get involved.
Yeah, I think a good recommendation was, you hinted at it, give up TV for a little while. See what happens to your intellectual and psychological makeup if you give up TV for a month, 6 weeks. I'll bet most people would be surprised at how calm they become.
Or you can even, we can go a baby step and just stop going to sleep, watching the TV with the news on or anything of that nature. Just shut it off before going to sleep. Don't go to sleep with the TV on.
Oh, yeah, that's horrible. I see people do that. How do you do that? It's noise. You're absolutely correct. And I got one more thing to tell you before we go. Here's another thing to break down an illusion that you live under. These are 6 additional amendments that have been submitted to the states, thus having received the requisite 2/3 of the both houses, but which have failed on ratification. The following are those 6 amendments that did not receive the requisite support of 3/4 of the states. September 25th, 1789, an amendment dealing with the number of representatives in the House didn't pass. An amendment adopted during the second session of the 11th Congress, which, by the way, is not born a company, relating to the acceptance of foreign titles and nobility. An amendment adopted and submitted to the states on March 2nd, 1861, prohibiting congressional abolition of slavery. Okay. Authorizing the Congress to enact child labor laws. Huh. And the Equal Rights Amendment never passed, relating to the voting rights of DC residents. So if your person is domiciled in Washington, D.C., you don't have any voting rights. Amazing, isn't it, folks? Thank you for listening to the 47th broadcast of the t-roh Show. We will see you next week.
Transmitting truth 1 week at a time.
That's right. Say goodbye, guys.
Good afternoon, folks. Thanks for your time.
Have a good week, everyone.